My sister-in-law took the money from my room and spent it. She thought I was going to cry. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My name is Emily Carter. I'm in my late 20s, and I've been working 2 jobs for years. Every dollar I saved mattered because I had one big goal. I wanted a place of my own. I was tired of living out of boxes, tired of renting rooms from strangers. I wanted a small house where I could finally breathe and feel safe. That dream kept me going on nights I came home exhausted, smelling like grease from my diner job or dragging myself in after long office hours. To cut down expenses, I had moved in with my brother David and his wife Rachel. It wasn't easy. They had their quirks, and Rachel especially wasn't the warmest person toward me, but I told myself it was temporary. I kept to myself, worked, and tucked away every paycheck. Finally, I had managed to save a little over $3,000. I kept it hidden in a locked drawer in my room, money I planned to use as the start of my down payment. One afternoon, after a double shift, I came home and decided to check on the cash. I unlocked the drawer and froze. The envelope was gone. My stomach dropped. I tore through everything, hoping maybe I had misplaced it, but deep down I knew I hadn't. My hands were shaking when I asked David if he had seen it. He looked confused and said no. Then I asked Rachel. Rachel raised her eyebrows like I was crazy. "What money?" she said, laughing a little. Her tone made me feel like I was the one being ridiculous. I pressed again, telling her it was $3,000 I had been saving for months. She rolled her eyes. "Emily, you're acting like I robbed a bank. It's family. Money isn't such a big deal. You'll make more." That's when it hit me. She wasn't even denying it. She had taken it, spent it, and thought I wouldn't fight back. She thought I'd break down crying, maybe even beg her for it. Instead, I just stood there staring at her while she smirked. David tried to calm things down, saying maybe I misplaced it, maybe I was mistaken. But I wasn't mistaken. I knew every single bill I had counted and hidden in that drawer. Rachel had stolen it, and she wanted me to feel powerless. I didn't cry, though. I didn't scream. Something inside me hardened in that moment. She thought I was weak, but she had no idea who she was messing with. That was the day I realized Rachel wasn't just my sister-in-law. She was my enemy, and if she thought taking my money would break me, she was going to learn just how wrong she was. I found Rachel in the kitchen the next morning, sipping coffee like nothing had happened. My chest tightened, but I forced my voice steady when I said, "Rachel, we need to talk. I know what you did with my savings." She leaned back against the counter, smirking. "Emily, you're so uptight about money. It's just cash. You act like the world is ending. Family shares everything, right?" She said it with such casual cruelty that it felt like a slap. I clenched my fists under the table, biting down the words that wanted to spill out. She wasn't even ashamed. She was proud, smug, like she had proven some kind of point. Her words twisted in my head, each one sharper than the last. David walked in halfway through, catching the tail end of our argument. Before I could explain, Rachel threw her arm around his and said, "Your sister thinks I stole from her. Isn't that insane?" She giggled like it was some ridiculous joke. David's face hardened. "Emily, seriously? This is dramatic, even for you. Rachel isn't like that. Why would you accuse her of something so selfish?" His tone was sharp, protective. Not of me, but of her. The room spun for a moment. I opened my mouth, ready to tell him about the empty drawer, the smirk on her face when I asked last night, but Rachel cut me off with a theatrical sigh. "She can't stand that we're doing well. That's the real issue, isn't it? She's jealous." David's eyes narrowed at me like he believed her. My throat burned, but I swallowed it down. I studied Rachel closely, and that's when I noticed the new designer handbag tossed casually on a chair, the glossy salon manicure flashing as she held her mug, the faint perfume of something expensive that hadn't been there before. My money. I didn't need her confession. The proof was literally dripping off her. She had burned through what I had saved with long hours, skipped meals, and constant exhaustion. She had turned it into shopping sprees and vanity projects, and now she was mocking me for caring. Inside, something cracked. Not just anger, but betrayal so deep it made my chest ache. My own brother was standing in front of me, defending her while everything I had worked for was gone. I kept my expression still, refusing to let them see how much it hurt. Rachel thrived on watching me squirm. David needed me to lash out so he could dismiss me as the over-emotional little sister. I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction. Instead, I nodded slowly, pretending to let it go. I let them believe I was swallowing my pride, letting them win. But deep inside, the wound was fresh and raw, and the quiet promise formed. This was not over. Not by a long shot. That night, lying awake in the small guest room, I finally accepted what was staring me in the face. Neither David nor Rachel would ever admit what had been done. Waiting for an apology was pointless. Hoping for fairness was wasted energy. They had shown me exactly who they were, and if I wanted any kind of justice, it would have to come from me. I sat up in the dark, staring at the bare walls, and a thought began to form. Maybe the money was gone, but that didn't mean Rachel got the last word. If she wanted to treat me like I was naive, if she wanted to act as if I would crumble under her smug smile, then she was going to learn otherwise. I promised myself I'd get my worth back, though not in the way she imagined. From then on, I paid attention. I didn't argue. I didn't bring it up again. I let her think the storm had passed. But I started noticing the little details she was too arrogant to hide. She bragged about her latest purchases as if she had earned them herself, showing off shiny accessories, name-dropping boutiques, even complaining about how exhausting it was to keep up appearances. Every careless word she spoke became fuel for me. She left receipts scattered like breadcrumbs, shoved in the trash or folded on the counter. A new leather jacket, beauty treatments, expensive meals out, lines of proof that her greed was bigger than her sense. I kept my expression blank each time I found one, quietly tucking it away. No confrontation, no arguments. Just evidence. It was strange, the way anger began to shift inside me. At first, the fire was hot, burning through my chest every time she flaunted something shiny. But as the days went on, it cooled, sharpening into something steadier. I wasn't furious anymore. I was determined. If she wanted to believe I was a fool, I would let her. I would smile at her jokes, nod at her stories, even help her carry in her shopping bags when she returned from another spree. Let her think she had won. Let her think I was broken. Because in silence, I was building something stronger. A plan. A record. A way to turn the tables when the time was right. Every laugh she gave at my expense, every careless display of her indulgence, I stored it away. She thought she was untouchable, shielded by David's blind loyalty and her own arrogance. But I was watching. I was listening. I was learning. And with each passing day, my rage became something she couldn't see coming, resolve. She thought she had stripped me of power. She had no idea she was only giving me more. The living room was full of clinking silverware and low chatter as everyone gathered around the table. It should have been a comforting night. Our parents had driven in, eager to see us together, but the air was heavier than usual. I could feel Rachel's eyes on me, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. She didn't wait long. Between bites of roasted chicken, she leaned back in her chair, grinning. "You all should have seen Emily," she said, her voice sweet and sharp at the same time. "She hides her savings like a squirrel hiding acorn." "Who does that?" The words landed like knives. My fork froze in my hand, but I forced it down gently onto the plate. Dad cleared his throat. Mom glanced at me with worry, but before either of them could speak, David burst out laughing. "That's my sister," he said, shaking his head. "Always overthinking everything. Rachel's right. You do act like money is something to bury away." Their laughter filled the room, and I felt heat rising in my face. I could see my mother's uneasy smile falter, my father's jaw tighten, but no one stopped it. I swallowed hard, forcing my lips to curl into something that resembled a smile. My chest burned, but I stayed silent. I cut into my food, chewing slowly, pretending to join the moment. Pretending was easier than letting them see the truth. I knew if I spoke, my voice would crack. If I defended myself, Rachel would only dig deeper. So I hid behind a mask, just as I had hidden my money. Except this mask wasn't meant to keep anything safe. It was meant to keep them from seeing how much it hurt. The rest of dinner dragged on like a play, where everyone knew their line. Rachel basked in her own cleverness. David supported her with blind laughter, and my parents tried to smooth over the tension with polite small talk. I answered when spoken to, kept my head down, and let the evening run its course. But when the dishes were cleared and the goodbyes were said, I slipped away to my room. The moment the door clicked shut, I sank onto the bed and buried my face in the pillow. The tears came fast, hot, and uncontrollable. Not just because of the money, not just because of Rachel's cruelty, but because my own brother had chosen to laugh with her instead of standing with her. For a long while, I let it happen, the sobs shaking my body. And then, just as suddenly, the crying stopped. My breath steadied. I wiped my face and sat up straight. The ache in my chest hardened into something else, something colder, sharper. I made myself a promise in that quiet room. Rachel would never see me cry again. If she thought tonight was her victory, she was wrong. One day, the joke would be on her. And when the price of betrayal finally reached her doorstep, she would be the one in tears. It started with a slip. Rachel left an envelope on the counter, half buried under grocery ads. Inside were monthly statements addressed to David. Curiosity wasn't what made me open them. It was instinct. And there it was in black and white. Charges from high-end boutiques, spa visits, restaurants I knew David never stepped foot in. He worked long hours and rarely treated himself. These purchases weren't his. My pulse quickened, but I didn't rush. I slid the papers back exactly as I found them and filed the information away in my mind. Over the next weeks, I paid closer attention. Receipts appeared in the trash with David's name on top, yet the items listed screamed Rachel. Luxury makeup, designer clothes, jewelry. One even showed a balance that had been carried over, interest added on top. I started collecting the evidence quietly. I took photos when no one was looking, slipping my phone out just long enough to capture a page before setting it back. Screenshots of digital orders came next. Rachel had a habit of leaving her laptop open. Each click, each record I saved carefully. It wasn't enough to know the truth. I needed proof. Meanwhile, I played my role. Around Rachel, I wore the same calm mask, nodding at her stories, laughing when she expected it. She never suspected a thing. Her arrogance blinded her. She thought the subject of money was settled, that I had accepted my loss. In her mind, she had crushed me, and I was too meek to fight back. One evening, she leaned across the couch with a smug grin. "You should be grateful, Emily," she said. "I did you a favor spending your cash. You'd have wasted it on something boring. I gave you an experience instead. You've been rescued." Her laugh echoed in the room, light and cruel. I smiled faintly, saying nothing, but inside, her words sealed everything. She believed she was untouchable, and that belief was going to destroy her. She had no idea she was handing me the very rope she'd hang herself with. I thought about David then, how he defended her without question, how blind he was to the truth. He didn't deserve the mountain of debt she was building under his name. He deserved to know what kind of woman he had married. And I deserved my own justice. That's when it all clicked. This wasn't just about my stolen savings anymore. It was about something bigger. I could protect my brother and make Rachel pay at the same time. Every receipt, every statement, every screenshot was another piece of the puzzle. All I had to do was wait for the right moment to put them together. And so I waited, calm on the outside, calculating on the inside. Rachel thought she had broken me. What she didn't realize was that I was already building the trap that would break her instead. I waited for the right evening, one where Rachel was out of the house. David had just finished dinner and was sitting in the living room, flipping through the news on his tablet. My heart pounded, but I knew I couldn't delay anymore. I stepped into the room and said, "We need to talk. Just us." He looked up, puzzled, but nodded. I sat across from him and slid a folder across the table. Inside were the statements, the printed receipts, and the images I had gathered. His brow furrowed as he flipped through the pages. "What is this?" he asked, his voice low. I kept my tone steady. "Your wife's spending. I've been keeping track. These aren't your purchases, David. You know that." He scoffed, shaking his head. "Come on, Emily. This is ridiculous. Rachel wouldn't do that. You've been holding on to this grudge, and now you're trying to make her look bad." I didn't argue. Instead, I reached into the folder and pulled out one last page, a recent notice showing his account had gone into overdraft from repeated charges. I slid it toward him. "Look closer." His eyes scanned the paper. The color drained from his face. His lips parted, but no sound came out at first. Finally, he whispered, This can't be right." But he knew it was. The realization showed in his trembling hands, in the way he gripped the page like it might change if he stared long enough. He looked at me then, searching for some hint that maybe it was a trick. I gave him none. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't push. I simply met his gaze and said, "That's my $3,000, and that's your wife." The words hung heavy between us. His shoulders sagged, and I watched the weight of betrayal settle on him. He had defended her so fiercely, brushed off every concern I raised, and now the truth was undeniable. Silence stretched out. He dropped the paper onto the table, rubbing his forehead like he could press the problem away. His breathing grew shallow, his eyes fixed on nothing. For a moment, I almost felt the urge to reach out, to reassure him. But then I remembered the laughter at my expense, the way he had sided against me without hesitation. This was his reality now, not mine. I stood slowly, gathering the folder back into my hand. "I'll leave you to think about it," I said quietly. No anger, no satisfaction. Just truth. As I walked out of the room, I heard him exhale shakily, like the foundation of his life had just cracked open. I didn't look back. Comfort wasn't my role tonight. I had given him the facts. The rest was his to face. The next evening, the storm broke. Rachel came home carrying shopping bags, humming to herself, and dropped them on the couch. David was waiting. I sat in the corner chair, silent, as he held the folder in his lap. "Rachel," he began, his voice tight, "we need to talk about these charges." She glanced at the papers, then at me, her smile twisting into a sneer. "Of course. Let me guess. Emily's been whispering poison again. She's always had it out for me." Her words dripped with venom, her eyes flashing with triumph as though she'd caught me in some grand scheme. "You can't seriously believe her, David. She's jealous, always has been. Manipulative, desperate for attention." I kept my expression neutral, hands folded neatly, saying nothing. The more she spoke, the deeper she buried herself. David's jaw clenched. "Rachel, stop. I've seen the receipts. I've seen the overdraft notice. This isn't Emily's imagination. This is real. Rachel's composure cracked. Her voice rose, shrill with indignation. You're taking her side? Over me? She doesn't understand marriage. She doesn't understand sacrifice. She wants to ruin us. Her rant filled the room, words tumbling out in fury, but I stayed motionless. I let her twist and lash out, watching the panic seep through her confidence. She couldn't disguise it anymore. David slammed the folder shut, the sound sharp in the quiet between her sentences. His face was pale, but his eyes were blazing. Enough, he shouted. I'm not blind anymore. Tell me the truth. What happened to the money? The room went still. Rachel froze, her chest rising and falling with uneven breaths. Then, with a defiant toss of her head, she said flatly, I spent it. So what? It wasn't a big deal. Her words hit like a slap. David's mouth opened, then closed again, his disbelief written across every line of his face. He looked at her as though he no longer recognized the woman standing before. I remained seated, calm as ever, my silence louder than anything I could have said. She had confessed with her own mouth, dismissing everything she had taken, everything she had destroyed, as though it were nothing. David's hands trembled on the folder. Not a big deal, he repeated, his voice hollow. $3,000 gone, debts piling up, lies stacking higher every day. And you say it's not a big deal? Rachel's glare shifted to me, sharp as a blade, but I didn't flinch. She had exposed herself. I didn't need to say a word. The weight of the moment settled over us all. For the first time, Rachel's mask had slipped completely, and there was no hiding from what she had done. The house erupted after Rachel's admission. David's face turned crimson, his voice shaking as he told her to get out. She tried to argue, tried to laugh it off, but the anger in his eyes silenced her. He pointed to the door, and for once she didn't have the upper hand. She gathered a few things in a rush, muttering curses under her breath, and slammed the door behind her. The quiet that followed was heavy, almost unreal. David paced the room, running his hands through his hair, muttering to himself about betrayal and humiliation. I left him there, retreating to my room, not to hide but to give him space. I didn't need to add more to what he was already facing. The next few days, the phone didn't stop buzzing. Word spread quickly, as it always does in family. Rachel wasted no time spinning her story, calling relatives and painting herself as the victim. According to her, I had orchestrated everything, turning David against her out of spite. She leaned into her role with practiced tears and dramatic pauses, but the pile of receipts and statements told the real story. When my parents saw them laid out on the table, they didn't need further explanation. Later that evening, my mother touched my arm gently and said, "You did the right thing, Emily. You kept your composure when it mattered most." My father nodded, his eyes steady. "You stood tall, and you didn't let her drag you down to her level." Their words didn't erase the pain, but they gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks, validation. Rachel, however, wasn't finished. One night, my phone lit up with her name. Against my better judgment, I let it ring, just to hear her voice spill out on the voicemail. She was sobbing, her words sharp between gasps. "You ruined everything," she cried. "You destroyed my marriage. You should have stayed quiet. Why couldn't you just let it go?" I listened once, then set the phone down. I didn't call her back. I didn't text. I didn't send a single word in reply. She wanted me to react, to fuel her fire, to keep the fight alive. But I denied her that satisfaction. Silence became my weapon. No screaming, no insults, no explanations. Just absence. Each time she reached out, begging or blaming, she was met with nothing. It was the only answer she deserved. Rachel had expected me to break when she first took what was mine. She thought tears would be my response, weakness my identity. But now, with her voice echoing through voicemails unanswered, she finally tasted the truth. The damage she had caused was irreversible, and I wasn't the one left in pieces. Weeks passed, and the cracks in David's marriage spread wider until they could no longer be ignored. The more he dug into their finances, the more he uncovered. Hidden accounts, balances maxed out, late fees stacking up. It was a trail of recklessness stretching back years. What he once dismissed as paranoia from me was now undeniable fact. The decision came one quiet morning. David sat at the kitchen table with a stack of papers, his expression hollow. Without lifting his head, he muttered, "I can't do this anymore." Soon after, the papers were filed. Divorce wasn't just an option, it was the only way out. Rachel's world collapsed fast. With no steady footing, she packed what little she could and moved back into her parents' house. Gone were the luxury bags, the glossy salon visits, the expensive dinners. Debt collectors began circling, and the reality she had always pushed aside came crashing down. The bitterness in her voice when she spoke to relatives was unmistakable. She wanted pity, but no one gave it. She had burned every bridge with her own choices. Meanwhile, I took a different path. Months of scrimping, saving, and swallowing pride finally bore fruit. I signed the lease on a modest apartment, a place that was mine and mine alone. As I turned the key in the door for the first time, I breathed a freedom I hadn't felt in years. No chaos, no manipulation, no one mocking the sacrifices I had made. Just peace. I furnished the space slowly, carefully, with the few things I had carried from place to place. Each item, no matter how small, felt like a piece of victory. It wasn't the house I had once imagined, but it was a start, and it was real. Every time I came home after a long day's work, I felt grounded, not drained by the drama I had left behind. Rachel, on the other hand, found herself cornered by the very mess she had created. The same woman who once flaunted purchases and laughed at my small savings was now stuck in the very position she had mocked me for. She assumed I would be the one to crumble, that I'd drown in tears while she thrived. But it didn't play out that way. I never shed another tear for her choices. I stood up, moved forward, and carved out my own life. And Rachel, the one who believed she had stolen my future, was the one left sobbing, trapped in the wreckage of her own making. Her downfall wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, steady, and absolute. She thought she had broken me, but all she managed to do was break herself. Looking back, the loss of that envelope still stings. $3,000 was more than just bills folded together. It was hours of exhaustion, skipped lunches, and sacrifices no one else saw. Watching it vanish at Rachel's hands felt like being robbed of time I could never earn back. But somewhere along the way, I realized the money wasn't the real lesson. What I gained was far more valuable. Clarity. I finally saw the truth of the people closest to me. My brother's loyalty had blinded him, but when the truth surfaced, I knew where his heart stood. My parents showed me quiet support, steady and unshaken when the lies began to unravel. And Rachel, well, she revealed herself in full. The mask she wore for so long slipped away, leaving behind someone selfish, reckless, and empty. That knowledge gave me freedom. I no longer doubted my instincts, no longer second-guessed the unease I had felt from the beginning. I learned who could be trusted and who never deserved the benefit of the doubt. Painful as it was, the betrayal sharpened. My new apartment became more than a place to live. It became proof. Proof that no matter how hard someone tried to drag me down, I could rise anyway. Each night I turned the key and stepped inside. I felt stronger, like I had rebuilt myself from the ground up. Rachel, on the other hand, was left with nothing but the wreckage of her own choices. Her downfall wasn't because of me. It was because of her lies, her greed, her arrogance. She thought she had stolen my strength when she stole my savings, but in the end, she had only exposed her own weakness. The irony isn't lost on me. She pictured me broken, drowning in tears while she basked in luxury. But that image never came true. I didn't give her what she wanted. I didn't fold, I didn't beg, and I didn't let her see me fall apart. Now, when I think of her, I don't feel rage anymore. I don't even feel sadness. I feel distance, the kind that comes when someone no longer holds any power over you. I carry the scar of what happened, but it reminds me of something vital. I survived it, and I came out stronger. So if I had to put it into words, if I had to sum up everything that happened in one final thought, it would be this. She thought I was going to cry. I didn't cry. I built a better life, and she destroyed hers. Do you think I made the right choice walking away, or should I have given them another chance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell for more stories.